Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta, and it is Tuesday, May the 4th. I am so happy to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and I'm happy to be here. To be able to do these shows is just so awesome. I thank everybody for listening. I really thank everybody for the support and for your friendship. I've got so many great friends like in Australia and the UK that tune in just all the time, and in Canada and the United States. I just thank you so much for being here and being, part of my life, really, because you might have some idea of what you mean to me, but then again, you might not, and I just want to tell you now, it just means everything to me to have you in my life, and I just thank you so much. And it would be kind of lonely here if I was just doing these shows by myself, and I've met so many wonderful, awesome advocates out there who are fighting for child rights and fighting to stop child abuse, and just to have that support and just to be one more voice and add my voice to theirs is just really what makes me feel good about doing this, you know what I mean? So thank you so much for being here. And we're going to continue we're going to finish up actually the article I found on the Awareness Center Incorporated, which is Common Coping Mechanisms Used by Adult Survivors of Childhood Sexual Abuse. And I found this article at www.theawarenesscenter.org. And there's 21, they list 21 common coping mechanisms used by adult survivors who have been sexually abused as children, and we're on number 19 now, so we're just about finished with this article. But it's a short little article, but it's pretty good, talking about what people do when they've lived through childhood sexual abuse. Some of the things that they might take on in their adult lives, like workaholism, just working all the time, self-mutilation, self-harm, suicide attempts. Control issues, denial, just all these different things that happen to people who have survived childhood sexual abuse, and really child abuse of any kind. These things are incorporated. They're not just only solely as a result of childhood sexual abuse, but all abuse kind of causes people to take on these behaviors. You know what I mean? And it's very hard. And some of them they said are good, and some of them aren't so good. So. They're not all bad, but it's just that some of them are extremely bad. So it's a good idea to take a look at it. I thought it was a great article. So we're going to finish that one up, and then we're going to talk about common symptoms in adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse that I found from healthyplace.com. And that's kind of another short little article, but it's got some different types of things in there, from physical symptoms to psychological and behavioral symptoms, after effects of child sexual abuse in adults, and different things like that. So we're going to look at that as well. And so I'm glad that you can be here. This is not a professional show. I don't hold any professional counseling certificates or therapy certificates, and I say this on every show. I believe the truth is necessary, and I want people to know that I'm just a private citizen who pays to do my own blog talk show and talk about child abuse-related issues and child abuse prevention and human rights abuse prevention, because I just want to be one more voice to add to all the other voices out there speaking about this, because it's so important. Silence is the problem. It allows the abuse to continue. It allows the abusers to walk free. And as an adult survivor of child abuse, which I am, it allows it doesn't allow a person to heal, really, to keep the pain and the torment and the anguish all stuck on the inside of us as survivors. To break that silence is a very freeing thing to do. However, you have to be in a safe place to do it. You have to be in the right frame of mind, and you also have to be ready to do that, right? So I was ready at the time when I finally broke the silence and started speaking out about my past and what happened to my family and myself. And that was last October, and it was a very freeing thing for me to do. It got it out where it needed to be in the public, as I couldn't see going to the grave with all that information in me, as I'm the only one in my family speaking out against the abuse that happened to us in the family, and really I'm the only one advocating for child rights and for to stop child abuse. So in my family, so it was such a freeing thing for me to do. I couldn't sit back and not say something and not get involved and not get my story out there, and for the sake of my family and the family members that are gone now, who went to their graves in silence, and no one knew, no one really knew the truth. There's only a handful of people that actually knew what was going on in the home, and so that's just the whole issue, right? It's awful, and silence is really the problem. And I think even for the public, as long as they don't hear about abuse, as long as the lawmakers don't hear about it and the public doesn't hear about it, then they just feel that it doesn't happen, and it's not such an issue, right? But it is a huge issue. 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys, that's an average of the statistics that are out there, will be abused in some way, especially sexually abused before the age of 18. So that's 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 6 boys. It's happening. It's happening all the time, and it's happening more than people know, because it's not even, most of it is not being reported. So that's the whole issue, and I just think, we need to talk about this. Society as a whole needs to come together and start talking about this all the time if we're going to make a change and save some of these children's lives out there today who will be murdered at the hands of their caregivers and parents and child sexual predators. It's so important. We got to try to save their lives. And we don't know who these people are, but someone in those children's lives knows what's going on, and someone needs to report it. It is the law, and not only that, it should really just be in your heart to want to save and protect children, no matter what the cost. So the adult abuser has to go to jail, or be convicted of the crime. It's a crime. Child abuse is a crime, and you could save a child's life by knowing how to report it, what the signs and symptoms are, and society as a whole needs to really start looking around at the children in their lives and make sure that they are being protected and that their rights are being upheld and that they are not being abused. And if they are being abused, they need to do the right thing and phone and call the proper authorities and get this abuse stopped. Right, because this is horrible. There was a statistic going around that said there's 600 million survivors of child abuse living in the United States alone. 600 million. Well, because if you say 1 out of 3 girls and 1 out of 6 boys have been abused, whether it's physical, verbal, emotional, psychological, sexual, then that tells you there's 600 million survivors in the United States alone. So that just doesn't even encompass the whole world. So this is a real problem, and it needs to stop, because the cycle of abuse just keeps going on and on and on. And if people don't get help, they can take this into their lives when they get older and pass the cycle on, which is what my mom did and what my dad did. But this is what I refuse to do, but I don't have any children. But the thing is I broke the cycle. You know what I mean? And I'm so thankful. So, I believe that had I had children, I would have broke the cycle. So that's what we need to do. We need to stop this cycle of abuse and domestic violence and every other form of abuse out there. It has to stop. And so I'm just so happy to be able to do this show. So if you're, sensitive to the subject of abuse, make sure that you turn the show off, because you have to listen at your own discretion. I cover everything regarding child abuse. You name it, I cover it. And so if it makes you uncomfortable, you have to turn the show off. It's your discretion. You listen at your own discretion. And if you're a young person under the age of 18, I ask that you have permission to listen to this show, and only because there's a lot of adult material on here, and there might be some young kids listening, and they need to get some permission to listen to this show, and let someone know, that they are listening to it, and maybe have someone listen to it with them, just to make sure it's okay for them to be listening to it. And so if you're a young person, you want to make sure people know what you're doing online, so you can keep yourself safe online, so that you don't get killed, or assaulted, or abused by a sexual predator, a child sexual predator. And they will try to get a hold of you. They'll use any means that they can, and you have to know how to stay safe online. So I suggest you get online and start looking at some of that online safety information and get yourself safe, keep yourself safe, and not live a life of fear, but just get the education and become educated on how to keep yourself safe online. So that's why I say this on every single show, because it is so important, right? So we're going to get right on into this article here. And we left off at lying yesterday. I kind of went into, into a bit of a, I don't know, some sort of a monologue or something. I don't know. I was really uptight about that whole situation with lies, because lying, lies are just what keeps abuse going. People lying, saying it didn't happen. The abusers lying, saying that they never did that. They never abused a child. Survivors lying and say, oh, it never happened to me. Society lying and say, oh, child abuse doesn't exist. And the lies is really what keeps child abuse going. And it's really horrible. And, truth is absolutely necessary. in every case, in all cases. Truth in our hearts, truth in our lives, truth in our government, truth in our world. You know what I mean? Truth is really necessary if we're going to ever make change in this world. We're going to have to stop lying about all this stuff. You know, truth in the courts. Like, if we had absolute truth everywhere, we wouldn't even be having the problems that we have, because it's the deception, right? That's how abusers continue to do what they do. It's they deceive people. You know, survivors, you know, basically just sort of live this life of denial quite often just so that they can survive, which is put on them. You know, it's not their fault. It's just that that's how they have to cope, right? So that's where we left off, and so I really did kind of go into that quite a bit yesterday, but I'm very much bothered by it, because I know that the reason why child abuse exists today is because of the lies surrounding it, and the fact that nobody wants to do anything about it, and the abusers just love that, because they can continue to do what they do and they can get away with it, you know, and they just don't have to be called on their behavior at all. They can just continue to abuse whoever they want. And as long as nobody reports it, you know, then they get to continue doing what they do. So that's why abuse is allowed to go on. It's so wrong, and we have to really stop that. So number 19 on this list is religion. This is a common coping mechanism that an adult survivor might use, you know, who has been sexually abused as a child. And I'll just read what they said here. Religion. Safety can be found attaching oneself to a belief system that has clear boundaries and rules. Traditional religion can provide an anchor. The lure of divine forgiveness can be a powerful pull for the survivor who still feels the abuse was his or her fault. And unfortunately, destructive cults can also be alluring to an adult survivor for some of the same reasons. You know, and I mean, I think that it's up to every individual to find their peace. And, you know, I was looking for peace, you know, for so long. I didn't have any peace in my heart, you know, and even up until about the age of 39, I was still no peace, you know, and considering ending my life and sitting there, you know, thinking that I might find peace that way. You know, that might be the only way that I would find peace, is if I got off this planet, out of this body, and out of my own skin, you know what I mean? But the thing is I'm so glad that I didn't do that, because I found peace shortly after that, and right within weeks, really, of thinking that, and all of a sudden I realized, hey, what am I doing? You know, I deserve to have a good life. And as soon as I started saying that, you know, and started realizing that I did count, I did matter, I did not want to hurt myself or kill myself. I wanted to go on and survive and actually be made whole. I wanted to be whole. I wanted to be a healed person who didn't walk around feeling this anger and hatred, and towards myself, because this is the self-worthlessness that comes along with abuse, right? And you know, just feeling so worthless, and if you've heard that all your life, you know, especially growing up as a child, it does stay with you, and we have to learn that that's not true. Those were lies. You know, there's some more of that lie stuff, you know what I mean? Those are lies put on you by someone who abused you, you know, and that's, in my case, it was my mother mainly, who made me feel very worthless and not wanted, and told me that I was not wanted, and really, you know, let me know that I was born out of rape, you know, because in a rage one day she told me that as she was beating the crap out of me, you know, that I was a rape child, and she did not want me, and I was not wanted. And so, you know, I carried that with me into all of my adulthood. Tried to pretend that it didn't bother me that much, because I was so used to being abused, you know. I just went on with life, no big deal. Did a lot of drugs till I was 21, and then decided to quit doing that, and then, you know, just kept working and living my life. But the thing is that was always in the back of my mind, because it was in my heart, you know. Like, she had really literally killed my spirit, and I was looking for peace for so long. I finally found it, and I really hope that everybody will find their peace, you know, whatever brings you peace. And it has to be good stuff. It can't be bad stuff. You know, peace is not about hatred. Peace is not about more violence. Peace is not about getting all crazy and doing crazy things. Peace is about finding that spot inside of you that says, you know, I am because I exist, because I was supposed to be here, and I did not deserve to be abused like that. No one does. And so I have to learn to nurture myself and allow others to, you know, to sort of learn how to trust, and allow others to help us out, right? Because we can't do it on our own. So whatever, you know, people find peace, whatever way they find peace, you know, that's what they have to do. And, you know, so I'm not going to sit here and say everybody should be a Christian or everybody should be a Muslim, you know. I mean, everybody just needs to find that one comforting, peaceful, you know, entity, really, that place where they can feel good about themselves as far as their soul goes and their spirit, right? Because I remember being like 10 years old and thinking that I was not just thinking but feeling dead. I really felt dead, and I never felt right after that. I felt dead. I felt that my spirit had left my body. I felt that I was really murdered at the age of 10 spiritually, spiritual murder, right? Because my mother had murdered me spiritually. So, yeah, I carried that with me my whole life, and I had a real hard time thinking about, things and stuff, and I've had a hard time just thinking about my own existence, and I kind of felt like I was really born in hell, and I was brought up in hell, and I was from hell, you know what I mean? Because my dad used to tell me that, and so well, he told us all that. So it wasn't just me; they were picking on us all, right? So our whole family heard this stuff, but they did a lot of directing of it towards me later because I was the only young child in the family, and everybody else would be gone for the day. So my parents had to take their crap out on somebody. So it was generally me, and so I heard all that stuff, and it really did have an effect on me. But I found my peace, and I'm so glad that I did. And I hope everybody out there will find their peace, whatever it is that brings you peace in your life, and lets you know that you do count, you do matter, you have every right to a good life and healing and wholeness, and that feeling of love towards yourself, which so many survivors of abuse have a hard time with, learning how to love themselves for who they are, and learning how to love themselves for what they mean in this world, for what they can bring to other people and what they can do for themselves. When you've been just beaten down in every way, it's very hard to come back from that, but we can do it. But you have to really reach out, and you have to keep reaching out until you find that peace, you know what I mean, and that support. And online groups are awesome for that. Like child abuse online groups, adult survivor groups. I used to belong. Actually, I sort of left one of them, but it was awesome, and I do still belong to two, and they are a great way to meet people who have experienced the same types of things that you've gone through, that I've gone through, because they can identify with what we're feeling, and then they can they do try to help, because they know what it's like to be suffering. They know what it's like to have that stuff going on in their minds and in their hearts, and they know how hard it is to kind of get over it. So that's why they're always so supportive. They're like, you can do this. I know we can. And that's what people need in their lives. You don't need more abuse, right? So you want to find people and incorporate people into your life who are going to be there for you on your very worst day. You know what I mean? Because that's what's so important. I was just talking to a really good friend of mine, a real sweetheart, this morning, and she was just mentioning that, and it's like, she just took the words right out of my mouth, like on your very worst day, that's when you know who your real friends are, because they'll still be there, you know what I mean? And they'll still be there, and they'll still want the very best for you, right? And so that's a real friend. So you want to have real friends in your life, and real supportive people who want to see the best for you, and who are not going to bring you down and tear you down even more than you've already been torn down as a child. It's so important, right? And number 20, avoiding intimacy. This is seeming open and friendly on the surface, but hiding real feelings inside. Avoiding intimacy keeps one safe, and sometimes leads to positive traits such as independence and autonomy. It also means missing out on the rewards of healthy friend relationships can bring, it says. So that's true, right? I mean, it's good in one way, because it does teach us how to be confident and independent, right, and stuff like that. But it also means that because we avoid intimacy with people, and really that it's that trust issue, that we miss out on a lot of relationships that way. And I know myself, I used to be like that. I'm a little more open than I used to be, but I didn't used to trust anyone. So I had a hard time. Most of my friends were survivors. My young childhood friends. I had some friends who did not grow up in abusive homes, but I also had lots of friends who did, and I felt very comfortable hanging around the ones that did, because I knew that they knew what we were the same, right? There was quite a few of us actually, and we knew we were looking out for each other, right? But I found it kind of hard to trust other people because I wasn't sure how they were going to treat me, so I kind of kept people away. I still sometimes do that, just because, if I think someone's going to be abusive towards me, I'll just push them away, like right away. And the minute they start, then I almost don't even give them a second chance, because I'm like, no. No more, no more. Not taking that as an adult. I can say no to abuse, right? But in the meantime, I kind of push. I do try to remember to give people a second chance, just as I would hope somebody would give me a second chance. You know what I mean? But if the abuse continues and the people, in relationships, whether it's friends or a family member or, a coworker, if they're going to continually abuse you or make you feel worse than you did before you met them, then you don't want to hang around that person, right? Because obviously they've got problems and they're just bringing it out on you. So that's not a friendship, you know what I mean? That's just more abuse on top of more abuse on top of more abuse. So we do have to be very careful and look out that we do not become re-victimized, you know what I mean, as an adult. It's a huge issue, right? And then number 21, this is the last one here. Manipulation. Adult survivors who are diagnosed as having a borderline personality often are told they are being manipulative. Once they are able to identify, process, and express feelings attached to manipulative behavior and taught other ways of getting needs met, the manipulation will usually cease. And I think that's quite interesting because, manipulation, that's what abuse is all about, manipulating. And, abusers manipulate everyone so that they can do what they do. And then, of course, that's a trait that survivors might take on too, manipulating people. And I don't know if I manipulate people or not, because I don't even know if I would recognize that I'm doing it, because my parents were very manipulative. But all I know is I try to keep what's right in my heart, which is to stop child abuse, stop abuse towards anyone. You know what I mean? And so in that regard, I don't think I'm trying to manipulate people. I'm just trying to help, stop child abuse, right? So I don't know, but sometimes I wonder even myself if I'm manipulative or not. I try not to be, but I don't even know if I'd recognize it because I grew up in manipulation, right? I was born of two people who were very manipulative. So I just kind of always have to wonder if I'm really manipulative or not, and I would hope that somebody would tell me if they recognize that, especially a therapist or a counselor, because I have no idea if I'm manipulative or not, and I sometimes wonder if my motives are, just manipulation. But I try to remember to be always in my heart to be a good person. See, so it's not, even if I was manipulating somebody, it wouldn't be out of some sort of bad thing in my heart, right? Because I really try to not hurt people, because I know people have been hurt enough, and even people who weren't abused as children have been hurt, right? Everybody's been hurt. We all know what it's like to be hurt, and so I try to not do that to people. And in the meantime, I might be a little manipulative. I don't know, but I'm always working on to make this world a better place, because we don't know how long we have here, right? And I thought, man, if I get, who knows how long I have, how many years I have, and I want to spend the rest of my life trying to make this world a better place. So, if that's manipulation, well, okay. But the thing is I guess it is something that we have to look out for as adult survivors of child abuse of any kind. And it'd be interesting to have an assessment done. I've never had any proper therapy or counseling or anything, because I didn't trust counselors, I didn't trust therapists, I didn't trust anybody really. But I was told, as a young person growing up, that all the therapists and counselors would do is just get our information and hurt us, because my parents were told to go to counseling. They went twice, and then we left the country, and then they continually they put a lot of fear into us as far as therapists and counselors went. Actually, they put fear into us in every aspect of our life, but especially that, and government too, And then they, it's no wonder my brothers went on to do all the stuff that they did. They were warped, from the time they were born by two people who were very warped themselves, which was my parents. So, it's hard when you grow up like that, because you don't recognize these behaviors as being wrong. And unless you reach out and get some help, and actually get some counseling therapy or whatever, it's, you almost just continue on in that. Right, so that's why I would like to see a counselor and a therapist, and see if there's any kind of behaviors I can correct, in my own life, so that I don't self-sabotage, and so that I can, learn how to cope a little bit better with certain things. And, I'm not beyond that at all. I just can't afford to go right now. I can't afford to do anything. I can't even hardly afford to do these blog talk shows, but I'm doing them anyway, just because I really want to. This is quite therapeutic for me. So it's kind of a cheap way. It's a cheap way to get some therapy, and also just to share some information, because I know there's so many survivors out there, right? Excuse me, my voice is starting to go. Yeah, well, there's so many of us out there, so many survivors of child abuse of every kind, not just physical or sexual. I mean, there's emotional, verbal, psychological, spiritual, you name it. It's been done. And so I think that's the whole issue. There's so many of us. I just wanted to be able to share with people, that they're not alone. And sadly, it'd be just great if there was just only one of us on this planet that ever was abused. Because we'd feel lonely, but then we'd be happy because we'd be like, at least no other person or child has ever had to go through this. But we all know that that's just not the fact. The fact is that the majority of us have been abused in some way. And that is horrible. It's absolutely disgusting. And if we think about the 600 million adult survivors of child abuse just in the United States and North America alone, that's just mind-boggling, and it's just so wrong. It's so wrong. There should not be 600 million survivors of child abuse. There shouldn't have ever been 600 million children abused. You know what I'm saying? This is a real problem, and unless we all start making some noise, it's going to continue. And that's the whole issue. I'm so glad to be able to do this show. I don't care what it costs and how much time it's taking out of my. I have nothing better to do with my time than to try to do something. And I know that I just want to join the ranks. There's some awesome people out there doing some awesome work, and all you have to do is pick one group that you really like, get involved, and start making some noise, And so that's what it's all about. We're going to make some changes, and it's going to happen because I know so many advocates and so many child rights advocates and advocates speaking out against abuse, and especially child abuse. And we are going to make a difference. It is going to happen. And because we're devoted, to to this whole issue, that it needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. And so I'm just, I hope that others will pass this show on to other people, and just let other people know that they need to get involved in their own communities in whatever way they can. I'll be doing a lot of local work this summer, and so I won't be online too much. I'll probably still do the blog talk shows, but I'm going to get out there and start looking to do some public speaking and things like that, and also get involved in groups here locally. And that's important. We have to support our local community groups who are doing some awesome work to stop child abuse, right? And so that's very important as well. And so there's just so much to be done, because right today there will be a handful of children killed at the hands of their parents or caregivers, and not just killed. I mean, we're not talking just killed. We're talking tortured. We are talking put through the worst horrific torture you can think of to these poor little children. And I don't know if a person has never experienced being beaten, and I'm not talking a spanking. I'm talking a real violent beating that could kill you. If you have never experienced that, then you wouldn't know really what I'm talking about. And these kids they're going to die at the hands of their caregivers today, whether it's their parents or a caregiver or a child sexual predator. And so we have to do something today. You know what I mean? And every day, because tomorrow the same thing will happen. And then the ones who aren't killed, there'll be however many more that are just stuck in these homes, suffering through from wounds and being tied up and bound, to furniture and stuff all around the house while they're being tortured. And they're still living, but how long can they live like that? You know what I mean? And then if they survive that abuse and they actually make it to their adulthood, they're going to be sitting here dealing with all of these symptoms and of adult survivors, trying to work it out and get this stuff worked out and healed from the abuse they suffered as children. So we have to do something. We have to do it today. We can no longer sit back on the sidelines and just pretend it's not happening, because it's happening. And us survivors know. We know, right? So, that's for anybody who's not a survivor of child abuse, right? All the rest of us know all about this. So thank you so much for tuning in. We've got about a minute left. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and I'm just so happy to stand with them. It's a volunteer role that I take on seriously, man, I tell you. Check out our website, http://dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. We are on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, we're on MySpace, we're all over MySpace. Please check us out, and make sure you get the information on how to report child abuse. There's a proper way to report it. There's a few simple steps. But if you mess it up, the child could stay in the home and be killed at the hands of their parents. So if a child comes to you or me and says they're being abused, we have to know how to report it. Because if we report it improperly, it will be thrown out of court, and the child very well will end up back in the hands of their abuser. So we have to know how to report it. We also have to know what signs and symptoms are to look for, so we can look out for the kids in our lives right today. And so get that information. And there's lots of great websites out there you can get that information from, but I just happen to be biased. DreamCatchersForAbusedChildren.com. Check it out. Lovely, awesome information on there. But it's also a very healing place for survivors, as I know, because I sit on there quite a bit, and I just love that website. So everybody, take care of yourselves. Have a great day. Whatever you do, make sure that you keep reaching out for that help and for that peace. And we'll see you again tonight. Tonight we're going to be on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's Donna Shear and myself. We changed the time, so we're no longer going to be on at 6:30 p.m. We're going to be on at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for an hour. So we'll be on, Donna Shear and myself, talking tonight from Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, www.blogtalkradio.com/Dreamcatchers. I hope you can join us live. I hope you'll be there. If you want to phone in, please do, and with questions or comments. And we just look forward to hearing from you. And we also just appreciate your support. And we love you so much. Have a great day. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.